Well, welcome back to another episode of the very creative branded series called Melinda and Her Colleagues podcast series on See Hear Love. So creative, and Mark Masri, who I'm talking to today, is actually laughing across the table at me because of that title. You
Sorry.
are like you're literally chuckling.
I am chuckling. I love
Because
it.
it's so pathetic.
No, it's awesome.
Oh, okay. So viewers and listeners, you can already tell that this conversation is going to be fun, but serious and more fun. Because Mark Masri, if you don't know him yet, you will love him by the end of this conversation. I know a lot of our listeners and viewers love Mark. I've known of him for a number of years, but for those who don't know, he's the co-host of 100 Huntley Street, Canada's longest running daily TV show. He has not been there since the first day, because then he would be like 75. So no, he's young. He's a Canadian singer, songwriter, and producer. He's released 7 albums. He's signed with Universal, and he's collaborated with a ton of people that we'll get into later on down in our conversation. But some of my favorites, David Foster, John Cicada, Olivia Newton-John, and so many more. So we'll talk about that. So, Mark, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, how long have we known each other? I was thinking about this because this is not like a new, like, oh my goodness, I don't know Mark. I've never met him before.
Like, this isn't like we met last month.
No, exactly.
No. So if we're going to talk honestly, I've got to say it's at least 20 years.
I think
at
so.
least 20
I
years.
think so, too.
I'm going to lean more towards 22, 23.
Okay.
But at least 20.
And I think really the one time that I remember that like it was so fun, we were in Nashville.
I knew you were going to say Nashville.
It was like we were in Nashville.
GMA week.
GMA week, and that was crazy. That was like the
Crazy
height
days.
of, it was like third day, delirious. I mean, I know we're dating ourselves,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Amy Grant was
Newsboys.
Newsboy-
Huge.
Yeah, and Amy Grant
Crystal-
was just dating or was just with Vince Gill.
Yeah, that was a big sort of like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
ooh. What
Who
happened
else
to Gary?
was there?
Where's Gary?
Where's Gary?
Newsboys.
Yeah.
Huge. Crystal Lewis.
Crystal Lewis was there. I think even Sandy Patty after
Oh, she
some of those.
she was
things
on the
that were
Redemption
happening.
tour.
She was on Redemption tour.
and
Sandy
she's
Patty
done
was there.
amazing things since then.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we were there, and
With another really good friend.
With another really
Should we
good
give her a
friend.
shout out?
Yes,
Lori Ranton.
Lori Ranton. Hi, Lori, if you're listening.
Lori.
That was so fun. Crazy memory. And we were there because I think you were an artist associate.
I was an artist associate
with World Vision at the time.
That's right. And I was also music producer for Huntley Street. So I was there kind of wearing 2 hats.
Right. That's right.
That's my first round here at Crossroads.
That's like me. This is like my second round
yeah,
as well.
yeah. Ding, 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 ding.
Ding.
Back in the ring.
Woo, here we are. That is right. And I was there because I was working at World Vision Canada, and I was helping with artist associates.
Yes, you were. Yes, you
and
were.
that's how we all got to, oh
That's
man,
right.
that
and
was
we
a
forged some very meaningful, life-lasting friendships.
I know. And then here we are. And I don't think I've ever done a one-on-one interview with you ever.
I don't think so.
This is like the first
I've
time.
interviewed you on Huntley, but you've never interviewed me.
Yeah, but for this length of time that we're talking, like
That's
we're going to get in there and go deep, and I don't know what's going to happen after this. So that's how long.
There will either be lots of laughter
or
tears.
or this is going to be like a, and this is going to be axed and canceled by Crossroads because we said too much.
Yeah, right.
I've got my fan, so it sounds a little. It's just hot. Today it's 38 degrees in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. For all of you listening, 38 degrees Celsius.
I love it.
I know, I love it too, but it's crazy hot.
It's hard to function in the heat, but I always think when it's a really hot day that January 13th is coming. I don't know why I picked January 13th, maybe because it's January and the number 13, or make it February 13th,
never heard of that.
or whatever.
Okay.
It's coming, and it will be negative a million.
That's true. So let's just like embrace
Let's
it.
just embrace it. Let's embrace the
Be full of
sweat,
gratitude.
the glow, the healthy glow. Because
Which we are. We actually have a really great healthy glow right now.
We do.
Okay, so here's the gush fest time of our conversation, Mark. And so I have 4 points for you that I was thinking about you of what I really like about you. So receive it, get ready for my gush fest of you. Okay, Mark Masri. Number one thing that I really, really respect and really love about you is that you are a learner. Like you're open to hearing like constructive criticism, but just thoughts, and then taking it and working through it and then becoming a better host and person. I have
Thank
seen
you.
that with you here at Crossroads, but it's just been something about your character where it's like you're open, you're a learner, you want to be better, you want to be better at your craft. And we can talk about this later, but I wonder if that's part of, as a singer, songwriter, and producer, if that's part of you as well. So being a learner is amazing because I think a lot of people aren't learners. They just want to kind of like get to the top without learning and growing. And so I see that in you. Second, this is my love language, but you are fun. And I say that because I've been interviewing people, for this series, and nobody I put was fun, even our CEO.
Thank God you didn't say you're a stick in the mud.
Yeah. Well, there's brackets there that says you're fun, bracket, sometimes a stick in the mud. But you're fun, you're open, you sing, you laugh, you make everyone feel welcome and at ease. And that's a really beautiful trait of yours. Like,
Thank
just
you.
this openness and fun. I think not just for now, but I think, when I look even through the scriptures and Bible, there's like joy and dancing and singing and celebration in it. As much as there is suffering and thoughtfulness and lament and grief, there's also a great sense of celebration. And I think that you really are about that. And I love that about you.
Thank you.
Right? Like when I come on
Thank
to
you.
like 100 Huntley Street, we're like, "Wah,
We always start
da,
singing.
da." Yeah, you know what I mean? And then you're
We
just like,
rap.
yes, and
There's
I love
usually
we
a
rap.
dance.
I
There's
know,
a
that's
lot
what
of
I'm saying.
laughter.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment.
Love it. Number 3, you are such a hard worker. I've seen this in your singing career as you host. And I was on I'll be honest, I was on your real estate page. I was just looking all kinds of about you. And you can tell that you work hard at your craft. And I really respect people that work hard, that don't take it for granted, that work at it, figure it out, find new ways of doing it. I love hard workers. I think that's something, I'm not saying that nobody's a hard worker out
Right.
there, but I'm just saying a lot of people want things easy, and I see you dig in, work hard, you're resilient, you keep going. And then 4th, I know this sounds, but what I really love and respect about you, Mark, is that you have this gentle spirit. There's a gentleness and kindness to you. I think it's beautiful to see in anybody, but in a man. And I think your gentle spirit is actually your strength. I think your gentle spirit is this great connection with humility, which really is a strength. And I really respect that, because you could come in with what you've achieved and who you are and be like the man. Like, here it is, here I am, look at this. But you don't. And you just have this gentleness and kindness too that's really, really beautiful. And I say beautiful in the way of, but it's really beautiful. And it's great to be around you in that. So those are my 4 gush points.
Wow. Well, thanks, Mel. I almost don't know what to say. I almost moved to tears here, but thank you for saying that. And to all of your points, I have one thing to say. They have been learned behaviors. They have been disciplines that I have had to work at. And I don't think and I think for anyone, you can attest to this as well in your life and career and family, that you don't get anywhere in the areas of your life that you're trying to grow and develop unless you put in the work.
Yeah.
And there's going to be failure along the way, and there's going to be a lot of missteps. But I've been super thankful for grace in my life, which is, carries us the distance,
Yeah. It's awesome. So there they are. You're 4.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of our show
Yeah,
today, folks.
and done. Thank you, Mark Masri, so much for coming out. And obviously, you came just so that I could gush about you.
Gush,
and we're
gush,
finished.
gush,
and now he's
gush,
never going to talk again. He'll be like, I'll just sit in the glow of the 4 gushes.
In the glow. I love it.
All right. So, what do you like about me?
Oh.
I know that was weird. That was a weird
No, that's
transition,
really
but-
good. Well, I mean, I could echo a lot of the things, maybe the comments that you've made about me, maybe because we see a lot of ourselves in each other. I think that's probably why we have such a good time.
Yeah.
Whenever we are doing quote unquote work, it is never work because we enjoy what we do and we understand how to appreciate that and not take it for granted.
Right.
In terms of your work ethic, Mel, I don't know if I've seen someone quite as committed to responding to a calling or a purpose in her life and running with it. Like in terms of being committed to seeing something through. until it bears fruit and not giving up on it. I just have to applaud you big time for that. You are sitting in the chair you're sitting today because of hard work and dedication and a love and a passion for what you do. I don't think I've ever seen you pour yourself into something that you weren't passionate about.
It's true.
And you're pretty multifaceted. You've got a lot of passions, and you've helped a lot of people along the way. And it speaks to sort of the well-roundedness of the person that you are too. So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
I thank you for that because, I think sometimes in the work that we do, like a performer, an artist, an entertainer, a host, people just think it's like easy, fast, look at you, you've got the spotlight, how amazing. But a lot of people don't realize how much work it is on the back end. Like, I don't think people realize that, I started this, like, I was producer, director, web guru, social media manager, writer, fundraiser for this. Like, I had one person working with me part-time, Iman, to launch this thing. I had to learn how to do everything. I had to write papers and sponsorship things and had to learn it. And I was Googling and YouTubing how to do it. But nobody knows that because now you see kind of like the end, right? Like the big in front of the camera now and all of that. And I think it's important to remind people, especially because, we've been at it. I've been working in this, for 25 years, 20 plus years, that it's taken that long to get where I am.
Yeah,
It's not been overnight.
No, exactly. Well, people will always say that overnight success in 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It's like that overnight. It's like the American Idol thing. You see a lot of those, or The Voice, or AGT, or any of these reality shows. You'll see these artists get up and they are incredible, and you're like, what? And then they're shot to the pinnacle of success overnight. So the public thinks. They don't realize is the hard work that they've been putting in their bedroom, the crappy gigs they've been taking in bars and pubs to try and be heard and recognized, or the work that they've been doing, trying to serve others and in the process build their craft and hone their craft. And it's been years in the making.
Yeah.
It's just they happen to have the platform now.
Right.
So.
Well, that's good. And I think it's a good reminder, too. So thank you. Thank you for your encouragement. And I hope you take my encouragement. And, yeah, I think that you need to know that. I think sometimes we don't say that enough to friends, colleagues, even family. And so this was just an opportunity for me to tell you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will cherish those words.
All right, fun, fast questions
Okay.
now. I love this because I'm always fascinated. And because sometimes it's the most random answers. But here we go, Mark.
boy.
Aside
Okay.
from 100 Huntley Street and See Hear Love. What is your favorite TV or streaming show, past or current, and why?
Okay, just finished.
Okay.
How to Get Away with Murder.
Really?
Yeah,
I've watched that.
It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure.
I know.
And there's certain scenes
good.
that you just have to fast forward
Yep.
through. But I love Viola Davis. I think she's an
She's
unbelievable
amazing.
actress.
Yes.
And there's just something about courtroom drama that I've always been drawn to. Like even way back to the Matlock days. Did you ever watch Matlock?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, love Matlock. But there's something about this particular storyline, and the plot gets so thick. Like it's unbelievable how
really is.
interwoven the lives are, and it actually kind of speaks to how connected we all really are.
Yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
you can think you are light years away from me in terms of connection, and when you realize, when you really dig down, you may only be a degree or two.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. She's great. And shout out to Viola Davis if you were
Yes.
listening.
If you are listening, Viola, we love you.
Love you. And if you ever want to come for a podcast with Mark and I, please do.
Please.
But that's actually really good. How to Get Away with, I know. And then there's sometimes I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And Chris is like, what? Are you going to murder somebody and put them? Oh, wait, better not give it away. But and I'm like, no, but that's brilliant. And he's like, okay, where are you going with this? I'm like, nothing. I
And
just
they
think it's
keep-
brilliant.
They just keep introducing characters.
I know, and you're
you're-
like, whoa,
oh my God,
whoa.
they're connected.
I know. It's amazing. Okay, so that's awesome.
Okay.
I would never have suspected that. So that's really great.
No, okay.
Okay, aside from you and me, who is your favorite influencer or host, past or present?
I have an appreciation for different people for different reasons.
Okay.
But let's just talk about Huntley Street for a second, because I worked under him when I was first here, and I'd have to say David Maines in terms of a host.
Yeah.
There was, to me, and I always said this, when David was in his prime, he could have been the head anchor of any national news desk in this country, or around the globe, for that matter. He had the voice, he had the presence that commanded your attention, but he chose to focus his energies on loving people through the medium of his program. That was his life calling, his life work. which now I get to be a part of, which is very cool. So I'm gonna give a shout out to David Maines.
Wow, that's really amazing. You are the you are the first colleague here that actually mentioned David.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, which is really I'm starring that. Yeah, which is really.
And there's no political motivation or agenda for that at all.
Well, actually, I know, Mark, what you're trying to do here.
No,
Mark,
it's honestly.
No,
I've
I think
always
that's
said that.
amazing.
Yeah.
You know that he was like, was he like 26 or 25 when he launched this whole 100 Huntley Street Crossroads?
The Crossroads family, yeah.
Mid 20s. Like I know people do that. I mean, but I'm thinking back like mid 20s. He launched what we're seeing now. Like
what do they say? Barely wet behind the ears.
Yeah, I
like
know.
just a young guy, young groom with a
the
young
vision.
bride, and they start this 1 hour or 15-minute program or whatever somewhere in the Ottawa Valley.
It's crazy.
Like just to get on and just to have a presence and start building a reel,
And what's
if you will.
cool is that now you see a number of us who are that kind of entrepreneurial spirit vision over like there are some of us are like that. Obviously you need the amazing support teams, but now you see it and it kind of makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. David Maines. Okay, that's awesome. Aside from the See Your Love book, Always Know.
I'm so glad that you know that my first favorite in all of these things is.
That's what I know.
Is
That's why you
always
didn't even.
connected to I didn't even need to tell you.
Say it. I know.
Yeah,
I just
you
was
knew.
like, I assumed.
Yeah.
What is your favorite book and why? And don't say Bible. I told everybody you can't say Bible.
Yeah, okay. So in my role, I have to read a lot of books.
Okay.
Right, because I'm interviewing guests and authors, great thinkers, theologians. But before I had to actually read books for a living, I'd have to say the novel that has impacted me the most was The Shack.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And I think because the author took such creative license in unpacking what our relationship with God looks like through the persons of God.
Yeah.
And I love the depictions of each Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I think he was brilliant. And he took some flack for that. Like he really did.
Oh, yeah.
From
Especially
hardcore
God being a
theologians.
black woman.
Right.
But when you think a black woman, you're like, in that way, it's like
Loving.
nurturing,
Embracing.
bracing,
Like
warm.
Nothing but warmth and
I know.
acceptance.
I know.
Brilliant.
And of course,
And the Holy Spirit being a gardener?
Yeah, who
An
is
Asian
Thank you.
gardener?
And when I did meet with Paul, the first thing I said was, thank you for making the Holy Spirit an Asian woman. And he looks at me and goes, I go, thank you. On behalf of all the Asian women, he's like, oh, okay, you're speaking for all the Asian women.
All the Asian women.
Thank you. He's like, you're welcome. Yeah, I think it was beautiful.
Yeah. In fact, I was finishing the chapter on a flight somewhere. It's when I was touring a fair bit. And the flight attendant came up to me. She goes, I've heard that book is really good. I said, it's amazing. And when I was done, I handed it to her when I got off the plane.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she took it. She goes,
Did you sign?
Thank you so much.
From Mark Masri.
Oh, I signed
Singer.
Paul's name.
Singer, songwriter, producer. 7 albums. Mark Masri.
Yes.
That's
Just in case
amazing.
you're wondering.
Just in case you're wondering.
Who gave you this book?
Please return back to. Don't you write that? I have people that write in their books their
Come
names.
on now.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that if it does go out somewhere, it may find their way back,
Okay,
or
well.
it may be in a library somewhere, and obviously you open it because I've seen this in old libraries. I'm like, who is like Kathy Rutherford? And she wrote her name, and it's like a 1972 book.
That somehow
She wrote her name, and then it
never
ended
got
up
back
never
to
got back to
Kathy.
Kathy. Kathy's like, where is that book? And it's in a random old library at a camp.
She doesn't realize it's
in a
in the
camp.
local library down the road from her.
Or it's at a camp up north of Ontario, in some like Bible camp, and they're like, "How did it get here?"
Or it's in one of those little huts that people put their books for the share club. You know, like you can give a book, leave a book, or whatever.
Yeah,
Leave
they
a
have
book,
them
take
on
a
there.
book. Yeah.
And there's Kathy
There's
Rutherford's
Kathy
book, and
Rutherford's
she's like,
book.
"Where is that book? I needed it for a study." Okay, that's awesome. Okay,
Oh my goodness.
time to turn the tables,
Okay.
Mark, and you can ask me anything
Okay.
within reason
Yes,
on
of course.
anything. Well, you know, I'm
Yeah.
pretty open. Okay.
Where does Melinda Esterbrook see herself in 10 years?
Man, Mark, that was another podcast I was going to do. No. Okay.
No.
In 10 years?
Okay, 5. Let's go 5.
Wow.
Because there's a big shift happening in the world
I
of
know.
media and
I know.
ministry. And
Wow.
all of
Okay. So I think in 5 years, Wow, it's kind of giving it away. I haven't even talked to like close friends about this. It's kind of like I'm outing myself. In 5 years, like I think see your level look different, be different, or be a new show idea. I'm all about succession, new people. So I feel like I would still be maybe hosting a show, but maybe something more in line with digital, podcast, YouTube a little bit more. I possibly. I will have written my first book about my life because that is in the works, and I haven't said that publicly, but it's in the works right now. So that will be have written and published in 5 years. And I think I want to do some work. And when I say this, it's like, is this gonna now? It's gonna be out there, and then what happens in 5 years? It doesn't happen. But I need to say it. I do want to challenge myself to get outside of this my Christian bubble and work in some more business corporate settings in a couple things, whether that's facilitation in areas of diversity and inclusion or leadership and vision and strategy. I would love, I know, do something in like interior design or something like that. I don't know.
You have
I know
that artistic flair.
Yeah, so something like that. But I know I'm still going to be in communications. I just don't know exactly what that looks like. I'm kind of like, God, what does that look like?
I could see you doing like something in like in the corporate culture space,
Because
like
here's
helping corporations
I would love
redefine
that.
that.
Because here's the thing. I think, listen, I'm for not-for-profit and Christian ministry, but I think sometimes, and this is a full admission, you have to be very careful not staying in, because then you are really you're losing the beauty of what's happening outside, and to be into those conversations that will challenge you. And I've noticed that. Like I am in a very really comfortable, beautiful, supportive Christian bubble. But then sometimes it's like I have to actually really work hard to get out of
To
it.
step outside of it.
And then there's other friends who are like in there, and they're like they don't have any Christian support. So I think that would be really, really good. Now you've been in that. Like, has that been good for you, or has that been hard and challenging?
No, I'd have to say, to your point, the ability to run in circles with people that don't have sort of the Judeo-Christian mindset, or they're not looking at the world through that lens, has given me insights into how they see the world. And obviously it gives you an opportunity to be the salt and the light that we're supposed to be. And it's not by, waving my Bible in the air or pushing anything down their throat in terms of any kind of doctrine or what I know to be true. But it's just living your life in a way that is consistent with what you profess, and people will dig deeper on you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like now when they know who you are, they want to, and they like what they see. They will do more research, and they begin, looking into your history and your faith and what it is that makes you tick and what it is that makes you the person that you are, because there's something about you that they like that is endearing. And I think that is exactly, or maybe partially to your point of maybe what you feel is maybe the draw to be, in it but not of it. So you can actually flavor the world in such a way that has a positive impact. And I didn't necessarily find, and I don't think you will either, because you're so grounded. It's not a difficult thing to live your life for God. It's not. I don't think it's any more difficult out there than it is in here. In fact, sometimes on the inside of Christian bubble, we can become quite complacent.
Yeah. Oh,
We were like
100%,
okay,
100%.
I'm covered, I'm cool. Everyone around me is a Christian, and we've got my church group, my book club that's all Christians, and I got my small group and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It can be quite easy to kind of sit back a bit and become a little complacent in our active pursuit of relationship with God.
Yeah.
So.
I would say that in the times where I do engage, it sounds so weird, but like when I'm in those spaces, I'll say this, and I don't want it to sound like my heart, but every time I'm in these spaces, people come up to me and just want to connect and be a friend.
Yeah.
Then they find out, oh my gosh, you're a Christian. Well, interesting. Okay, this is, and they're not aggressive or angry. They're just like, oh, tell me more. Like, why? Or let's hang out. And I've had more people invite me out to do stuff with them than me inviting them out. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Because when I just go out, they're like, "Oh my goodness, look at you! You're on a patio. You're singing away. You're having a great time." There's like this freedom and joy to you, which I know attracts people. And then I'm just like, "Oh yeah, well, I follow Jesus," and they're just like, "Oh wow, okay." So it's like,
Tell me more.
Yeah, exactly.
Oftentimes you will
Exactly.
get the tell me more, maybe in not such explicit terms,
Yeah.
but you will get the tell me more through their body language, through their questioning, through their
Totally.
inquisitiveness. And you're right. Like there is a hunger to be known in that way by people outside of
Yeah.
our Christian bubble, right?
We need to be reminded that. I think that's good for us to be reminded of that. And also, as people are listening and viewing this podcast, for them to be reminded
Yeah.
to be intentional, but also don't be like cheesy. And
No.
don't be angry, please. Like, just
Oh, please.
like, please don't be angry and don't be cheesy and don't say and don't like
Don't be
leave
cliche.
and don't leave tracks as tips for hardworking like servers
If anything,
at
leave
restaurants.
the biggest tip that waiter or
Thank
waitress
you.
has received that
Thank
day.
you
right?
very much, Mark. Sorry,
Honestly,
I know.
really,
I know.
100%.
I might get like somebody like write me something nasty now, but come on,
Yeah.
don't do that. Okay, now, have you ever? Okay, so how many years have you been doing singing professionally, singer, songwriter, producer? Would you say
20 years.
20 years? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be that? Like when you were growing up as young baby Mark?
Young baby Mark.
Yeah. Were you like, that's what I want to do?
Okay, so my mother says I could sing melodies before I could form words. So there was always this gifting of music that I possessed. Although I don't really consider it mine, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think I grew up feeling like I grew up during the early 80s, where late 70s, early 80s, where once I started being, getting a little more serious about my schooling and what courses I was going to take, that I needed to, kind of set myself up for university degree that was going to get me a real job, and music would just be sort of the hobby on the side and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I started down the road towards medicine. So I was in a 4-year science degree program. I was heading.
Wow.
I had my sights set on medicine because I always have had an appreciation for the health sciences. And then, come second year of my 4-year degree program, I lost a very close friend to a brain tumor. So that caused me to reprioritize life. And I'd been, doing music all along. It wasn't like I hung up my microphone and had moved on down the academic road. But I just was really challenged in that season of my life to take stock and to reprioritize what I was going after. And it was in that season that I felt that I knew that I'd been created for music. And so I needed to take that step of faith. So that started me down a journey of making music. And for a period of time, I was here for the Crossroads Christian Communications ministry as a music producer for Huntley Street, and all the while recording music as well. So, but in my gut, I'd say that music was always my dream. I just didn't think it was attainable. Maybe as a youngster in my teens, early 20s, and then after that experience in my life, it kind of changed my direction. My trajectory completely
Right.
changed, and I haven't looked back.
Wow. So 20 years. Mark, what would you say has been like the greatest moment for you as a singer? Like a moment, a person, a collaboration? What would you say?
Well, there've been some pretty amazing.
You could do two.
Okay,
if you can't
can I
do
give
one.
you two? Okay. I'd say the first one for me, because in my space of classical crossover music, I would say probably the ultimate producer to work with is David Foster.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Like for anyone on the globe, you want to work with David Foster, and I had the opportunity a number of years ago to guest on one of his PBS specials that was taped in Mandalay Bay in Vegas. It was actually his Hitman Returns PBS special. And we were premiering. I was playing the role of one of the characters in a musical that he was writing music for, based on Betty Boop. And the other two, Megan Hilty was my female interest, love interest, and she went on to have incredible success in primetime television, and she was an incredible artist. Plus the older couple from, what was the show that was on all the time? Why can't I remember it? With, anyways, the older, Wisteria Lane.
Oh, Desperate Housewives?
Desperate Housewives.
Yes.
So what was the older couple's name?
Oh,
Names.
that couple. Yeah.
So they were the older us. So I got to act alongside of them, but
Okay.
sing as well. Anyways,
Okay.
a long time to spit that
Wow.
out. So it was pretty amazing to be on that show. And then like a finale that night, there was a number of artists on the stage that night. To be standing on stage with Seal on one side of me,
Oh
Kenny
my
Loggins on the other,
gosh.
Shaka Khan next to
No.
him, Donna Summer, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
No.
Yeah, like quite an amazing experience. And to have a picture to prove that I was on the stage with that cast of incredible
Oh my
artists.
goodness.
So pretty amazing.
Did Seal sing like a kiss?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
That's like honestly one of my like favorite songs.
Yes.
And the Shaka Khan. Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
Really?
Oh, amazing.
What was it like to work with David Foster? Like, is he just like brilliantly creative, or is he like eccentric, or is he like
There's an
chill?
eccentricity
Okay.
about him. He's very much in the zone. When he's creating, it's like, we're here to work.
Okay.
And that's, I got to say, probably been the biggest secret to his success. Like, he doesn't like get off on tangents and get fooling around.
Yeah.
And, he'll have a good time when it's time to have a good time.
Right.
But when it's time to work,
Yeah.
he gets down to business. And it can be a little bit intimidating walking onto the stage for the first time. And he had heard me before. I mean, obviously, that's why I was
Yeah.
invited. His sister has always been a really big fan of mine. So she was the one she was working with David in sort of a management position at the time. So
Yeah.
she was the one that said, David, we got to have Mark come and play the role of this guy. And
Wow.
so I had literally a week's notice before this show was going to be taped. And so I was all freaked out. So, yeah, to walk out on stage with David Foster sitting at the piano, it's pretty crazy. I've gone on to do some other things with him
Yeah,
since then,
that's
so it's been great. So,
amazing.
yeah.
So Seal, Kenny Loggins, Shaka Khan, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yes. Come on.
I would be like,
And they all sang up a storm. Peter Cetera,
Peter Cetera. Like those are the
Yeah.
people that like I grew up with in music.
I know.
That's
Same
amazing.
here. Like every single voice that has had some sort of influence on me as an artist, I was standing shoulder to shoulder with. So,
I bet you're just like, whoa.
like almost speechless.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Pinch me.
Okay, I love that. Okay, what has been the hardest part of being a singer? Like this journey, like a low time. What's been hard about it?
The uncertainty of the industry. There's so much uncertainty when you commit yourself to a life in the entertainment world. It all depends on the flavor du jour, like what's happening, what's trending in the music world, what kind of artists are theaters buying, if you will, for their series, their concert series. And if, once you've kind of done the circuit, you might be a good 3 or 4 years before they're going to come back around and want to book you again. So there's always this sense of like, what's next? Like, even if you map out the next 6 months or 12 months of a tour, that's great. And that's good for those 12 months, but
Right.
you need to figure out what your plan is going to be for the next 36 months while you're trying to either record another album or ramp up. I just think there was so much inconsistency for me. And there are things that I probably could have done better. There were things that I think I did relatively well. But you don't really know in the moment. You're just kind of doing the best with what you have to work with. And I've had seasons where I had a really great team. And then I had whether it was a booking agent and manager and a music director and that sort of thing, and label being super supportive. And then there were times where you'd find out that your agent took a killer gig and gave it to another artist, a gig that was intended for you, and they turned around and gave it to someone else because they could get a higher dollar value for that person than for you.
Wow.
And so that kind of stuff hurts. I mean, it happens, right? And you can get pretty angry and bitter during seasons of your life because you always feel like you're chasing the next thing. And I mean, we're entrepreneurs, so there's a
Right.
certain amount of that in me, but I've only got so much go and get it in me before I feel like, okay, I got to back off here. Yeah.
So for the young person who's listening, is like, should I even get into this world of? Okay, you should see Mark's face as I say this. It's like gagging on his coffee. Like, okay, maybe you've been answering right now as you're doing this, but should they get into it? Because there are so many people that want to, and now that we've got YouTube and TikTok and all that, but I don't think people realize just how hard it is. Or maybe they do. I don't know. What would you say, to somebody who's like, should I get into this world of entertainment and being a
Yeah.
singer, songwriter?
Well, I'll tell you this. People say, "Oh, if I could just get the record deal. If I could just get the record deal." I've had the record deal. I've had it. And record companies don't do anything for you. They are simply there. They are simply there to participate when you do well. They want to take a piece of you doing well. But in terms of them being key to your success, they have little or nothing to do with your success. You've got to go out and create it and make it for yourself. And then they will take their piece. Thank you very much.
Got it.
All a label is a calling card if you're lucky. And the industry has changed so much from when I first got into it, when people were still buying plastic. That's what we call CDs. When people were still buying merch.
I loved CDs.
Right?
I loved going out to like the store and like
just
waiting
flipping through
getting them, or actually waiting for when the release of the CD or whatever, right? I miss those days.
Now it's like a Spotify pre-order.
Oh.
Like, I don't even know how that works, to be honest.
There's nothing even about it. Like,
No.
it's not like interactive.
It's tangible. I want to pick it up. I want to read the liner notes. I want to see the beautiful
exactly.
artwork and the photos.
Exactly. And that's the thing too about like even getting tickets for a conference or like a concert. We would skip school.
Yeah.
And we'd line up at like Stand the
Ticketmaster,
Record Man
or
or Ticketmaster, whatever, and like line up and skip school to get tickets for like U2 or Bon Jovi or Madonna. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And there was something about that where now it's just like I know it sounds so old, but
on the
I
app
miss
on your
that.
phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm saying, like, all of that to say, so much has changed. So if for those of us that got into the industry back when albums were still being sold, like in terms of plastic, like I say, CDs, maybe what was I going to say? Labels were a little more invested. Maybe they did a little bit more for you. They might take out an ad for you in a magazine, or they might put a billboard up, in whatever major market that they thought you had the most appeal.
Right.
But now that things have gone digital, I mean, they don't even need to worry themselves with making physical product for you anymore. So now it's just about, send us the track. It's a singles driven industry. We make one track. If it's really, really hot, we'll pump it out to all the major streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify. So what you're doing now, you're all clamoring for that front splash page of Apple Music in the country genre or whatever. A kid that I vocal coached a few years ago was on Apple Music this week in Canada.
Oh, wow.
He just got a deal in Nashville.
Wow.
Yeah, shout out to Josh Ross, amazing upcoming country artist. He's had some great success. But, there's that one spot where you can only put one artist's face, and you got to hope that drives enough new listeners to want to inquire about that artist. So, like, how many streaming platforms are there? Mel? Spotify? Apple Music? Is Google Music even still around? I don't know.
I don't know.
Amazon. Music, Prime, Music, right? So you've got these. Before there used to be countless. You'd have like Rolling Stone magazine and all these different magazines. You would go to the record store to flip through the magazines to see who was being profiled, and there would be numerous profiles in the magazine. So it's just changed so much. All of that to say.
So all that to say, if you're going to get into this industry,
I'm saying, listen. At the end of the day, do what you love, and your gift will make a way for you. Do what you love, and your gift will make a way for you. If you have something to say that resonates with people, it connects with people, you will have an audience. So as long as you love it, do it for that reason. If you're trying to do it for any other reason, I'd say go with your plan B.
That's good. That's good advice. That's really good advice. I wonder if that's why, like, Chris and I now are into vinyls.
Yeah.
We go to, like, record stores in every city that we go to, and we have some amazing ones, like in Caledonia, in London, here in Burlington, everywhere we go. Or if we're antiquing, because we love to go antiquing, we look at albums.
Yeah.
And that's fun. Like, we open up, it's a white album, right? And you open up, and, we open up, I just got him for Father's Day, the George Harrison 50th anniversary, which is amazing. George Harrison was so underrated, and then you listen to his music, it's amazing. You've got Eric Clapton, like vibes in it, and you open it up and there's a poster, and then you can read. Like, there's something really tactile and beautiful about a vinyl. Like, now records. So now we're all about records, and it's funny because everywhere we're going now, we're meeting. It's like this community. Our friends are doing it. We're like swapping stories. People are like giving Chris records from their like parents. They don't have a record player. Like it's been really fun.
And you see the artists like in certain music spaces are cutting their albums on vinyl because there's a real market
I love
for
it. And it's rich. It's robust when you hear on vinyls now, right? Versus like
the warmth of the sound
love
is
it.
unrivaled.
I know.
We've become so attuned to this high fidelity, crisp, almost thin sound that we hear digitally.
Yeah.
That you put on vinyl, and then all of a sudden it's like a warm blanket.
It is.
Right?
That's it.
Yeah,
and of course, then we had to get these like old. Like I can't believe we bought old 1970s speakers for the thing. I go, that's like my grandpa.
Because there's nothing better.
Yeah. So there's Chris looking for it, meeting an old guy who was giving him a deal on like Facebook Marketplace, and we had to spend hundreds of dollars on these old.
Yeah.
But then you put them in our living room, and the sound, it's like that enveloping. It's beautiful and warm and rich and creamy. And anyway.
Did you ever have one of those like furniture pieces?
Yes.
That had the record player in the middle and the speakers
That was
were
my
built in?
grandpa's, and he gave it to me.
And there was like little slots where you keep some of your albums.
Yeah.
We had one of those too.
It was amazing. I love it. Okay. Favorite, this is so hard, I know. Favorite song of all time. And why?
I'll tell you why. It's an Italian song that I've recorded and performed numerous times. It's a tribute to the great tenor Enrico Caruso. The song is called Caruso, and it's a song. There is some speculation that the song was written about a young love that he had that was an unrequited love. But it's a beautiful tribute. It was written by one of Italy's more modern composers, Lucio Dalla. He has since passed away in the last 5 to 7 years. But the beautiful thing so here's the story about Caruso.
Wow.
He came to America, played a number of the big opera houses, and then got quite ill, and it was his request to be returned to Italy, where he would spend his dying days. During that period of time, as he was slowly slipping away, he stayed at this particular property on the Amalfi Coast, and decades later, Lucio Dalla goes and checks himself into this very same hotel and asks to stay in the suite where Caruso stayed for his last days. And when he emerged from that suite, which actually has a beautiful grand piano in it, it's now a hotel.
Okay.
He emerged with this song called Caruso, which has become almost like an Italian anthem. Like, honestly, I married an Italian woman, and I can't tell you how many Italian weddings we went to when we were dating, early 20s, that this song was played all the time. Like, I thought it was the national anthem.
How does it just say?
Te voglio bene assai, ma tanto tanto bene assai, e una catena ormai, che il scioglie d'indivene assai.
Oh my gosh.
And
It's
che voglio bene
beautiful.
assai means I love you. It's more than I love you very much. It's like, I yearn for you very much. Yeah.
It's that love lost or love
Unrequited, unreturned.
And then your heart goes,
Oh,
oh
yes.
yes.
And the last line, it's like your love is like the blood in my veins, like din divena sai, right? It's
Who writes these words?
I know. Well, Lucio Dalla wrote them,
obviously,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like when you come with that, like that creative, it's like, oh.
And
you can
even when I've
visualize
sung it for audiences, Mel, that don't speak Italian, they don't understand. They say, "Oh my God." There's just something about the emotive quality, and singing in Italian too has got all these big, beautiful open vowels. I think that's why so much classical repertoire is written in Italian, French, obviously German. German's a little more harsh, but there's just this open sound, and it just speaking about enveloping. It just and people can make the lyrics, even though they don't understand, mean whatever they want based on how the music makes them feel.
But also, I think it's the yearning. Every one of us has had some kind of a yearning, whether it's a yearning for your freedoms or yearning for a relationship or yearning for something better, whatever. So people know, like, worldwide yearning. It's a longing.
Yes.
And so a longing or yearning is for everybody. So it can be put to anything.
Yeah, and it comes out in the music.
I
know.
know,
It's like you can communicate yearning just through your tone.
I know.
Right? And so people are just like, oh, yes, whatever it is he's singing about, I want that.
Yes. And everyone's like, oh, and then they leave and they're like, oh. Okay, come back to reality.
Okay, back to reality.
Right? Like, that's what happens. Okay, that's beautiful. I love that that's your favorite song. So we've been talking about, like, singing, but was it hard for you to transition to being a host of 100 Huntley Street? Like, I mean... in that, and I say this because, like, when you're in that space and then you're coming in now to host, were there same or different skills Was it hard? Was it easy? What was that like for you?
Coming in to the role as host of Huntley Street wasn't difficult in terms of my connection to the message, to the people, to the MO of the organization, because I have been so connected to these people for so many years. You know, I've got very deep friendships and a love for this place. And in a sense, you know, hosting and singing, they're both forms of communication.
Right.
Right. So I'm just kind of using a different muscle to communicate, if you will. I'm
Right.
not singing, I'm just speaking. But it just awakened something within me, almost an inquisitiveness, like the ability to pull people's stories from them. Like, I no longer have to be the one to tell the story. I can actually pull it out of you as my guest, or causing me to dig deep into literature that's being written by celebrated authors and great thinkers and personal stories, and try and pull something out that maybe the artist or the author didn't even necessarily pen, has been a great challenge for me. And I always love a challenge. I tell people, like, I get bored easily. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to have a number of different things to do. And so hosting has been one of those beautiful blessings in my life. On the flip side, it was a bit sad for me because it represented the closure of a chapter in my life. Yet I was so excited to move into the role of hosting, and definitely seen a divine plan in it. But also looking at sort of where I'd been and what I had worked so hard to build, and seeing the writing on the wall, if you will, that chapter was coming to a close, or at least for now, it was being put on hold. So, a little bit of both. But I'd say more of the just loving it.
I think the inquisitiveness, but also, like, I think for me too, it's a curiosity of like, what are they about? What does this mean? How can I learn from it? What can I take from it? What would be actually a really good question for this guest that maybe they didn't assume or know, and it's not on the press release and like the assigned questions from the publicist, and you're
I hate that. I don't even read them. Do you love this, Mel?
Good to know
I
that.
don't even read them. Do you? I mean, occasionally, if I'm really struggling with the direction, I might take a question or two.
Yeah.
But don't you love this when you get an author or someone that you're interviewing and they're like, "That's a really good question." I'm like, "Yes,
Nailed it.
I thought of one that no one else has asked them.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
No, I know. I get that too. So I do that. So this is like such a great admission, because I'll read them, and if there's like 8, I may pick one that I was like, that's kind of like my question, but I'll change it around.
Yeah.
But then I ask my own.
Yeah.
Because it's like, they've been asked that a million times. I remember I was talking to, I don't even know who it was. There were so many. And they were like, that's a great question. No one's asked me that. Oh, you stumped me. Wait, I need to think about it. I'm like, yes. And it's not to do that. It's that it's out of my own interest to find out really what that's about.
Yeah. And you know what it says to them? She's interested in me.
Yeah.
She's not just going through the standard
I know.
list of questions that my publicist asked me to prepare. But this particular interviewer host has actually read the content, and it's triggered a question.
Yeah.
Or, like you said, a curiosity about why I wrote this, or what was the impetus for this particular chapter or passage.
It's good.
Yeah, so it's good.
Okay, Mark, high and low, meaning most memorable moment so far on Huntley, and then lowest point. And it doesn't have to be an interview, but what, like, high, low?
High, that's hard. Oh, I'd have to say, more recently I interviewed Johnny Erickson Tata.
My mom would be all over this. That's one of her favorites. And it was one of mine. I remember when,
I have to say there is something, and I've interviewed Harry Connick Jr. That was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
But in terms of an experience that I think has changed me a little bit, it's been Johnny. And I remember watching her movie as a young kid. Remember when the movies would do the circuit at churches, and there'd be like a Sunday night feature, and it would be the film on the reel-to-reel.
And everybody would say, don't dive into a lake.
A shallow
water.
I was afraid of diving
Me
from
too.
that point on after I watched Johnny Erickson Tata.
Me too. It was like, oh, there could be a big rock. I could get paralyzed every time. So I was always like, I know. I was paranoid for a little while about that.
To be able to interview her now after 50 years in the chair,
50 years? She's 50 years?
She's almost 70.
No.
She's been paralyzed for 50 years.
Wow.
She deals with chronic pain. She's battling cancer. She struggles to take the next breath. And yet she puts on the deepest seated smile you can imagine. You know she believes what she preaches. Like, it just oozes out of her. And I think for me, I'm just like, my goodness, like, I can learn just from being in her presence, even though we're doing so much virtually now on Huntley Street. We're not always having a lot of guests in the studio. So these ones we've been doing via video conference. But it's been so life-giving to me. And I think I'd have to say that Johnny Erickson has been probably the most impactful for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I remember that because I remember it was a young girl when she started like doing the paintings with her mouth. I'm like, I wouldn't think of that. I wouldn't do that because I'd be like,
so mad.
I would be so mad at life, so angry at God.
Yeah.
Because I can't do anything. But then she's painting with her mouth, Mark.
I know.
The paintbrush. Come on.
I know.
Like,
And she does relief work, Melinda, around the world for people that live with disabilities. Like, she's become an advocate for people living with disabilities. Like, she's taken her thorn and turned it into a blessing in other people's lives.
and so here's the thing that I'm always saying, and I'm always just very aware of. There are many people who have the same situations and circumstances, but what do they do with it?
Yeah.
In everything. Because there are people that are like Johnny, and who have become bitter and angry and have just kind of given up on life. You know what I mean? Like, there's the choices we make can really like determine our life going forward. So here you would think, oh my goodness, she has every right to be angry and like hide away, be insular, and like be justified to be angry and be nasty. But no, you're saying no. She's now helping, even through the chronic pain. She's an influencer. She like loves Jesus. Like, you know what I mean?
I know. If I can just even be 10% of what she is as a person, like, I'll be feeling good about myself.
John, if you're listening, we love you.
Yes, we
Thank you for being such a great influence to us.
Thank you for being you.
A low. I mean, it can be general. I'm not trying to like.
Yeah.
Well, am I trying to do? No, I'm saying what would be a low or something that was hard as transitioning to a host.
In terms of an experience or just sort of overall, I think I just adjusting to the mechanics of live on air hosting, where you're trying to be in the moment with your guest, but you're also getting in-ear prompts and direction as to where we're going next. How do we transition smoothly? I've always here's Mark being completely honest here. Of all the sort of the skills that I need to draw on to execute an interview well, I really struggle with landing the plane. That's what we call it. I mean, that's what I call it. Like I can get it off the ground, no problem. I can keep us in the air at 30,000 feet for an hour.
Yep.
It's when I get the radio tower that says it's time to now land the plane.
I know, because that's also part of it.
That's part of it, because that's what people are going to be left with, how you land. So getting direction in your ear, okay, we've only got so much time, and figuring out all of those mechanics, that has been probably the biggest struggle for me. But with every passing episode, of course, you get more comfortable.
I have a suggestion. Why don't, like, about a minute out, you just go, ah, and just
sing a song.
And let's land this plane. Amen. Okay, we're done. And then just bam.
And just like to the next
segment. Because that
segment.
would be really, and then the guest would be like, okay. Okay.
It'll catch them off guard so much.
Oh.
They will just smile.
And then you could be like, join in, and we'll just end. Like, that would be awesome. Like, every end, you're just like, and we're ending. Thank you so much. You're such an inspiration. You're enveloping me in your love. Keep going.
Make sure you come back.
Yeah. Or not, because after this, it's kind of weird. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, okay. No, that's honest. I get that. And you know what? There is a craft. There is a learning. Like, I've so many years of, like, watching people and then and I mean, I never like to watch me back. People are like, how do you watch your like See Hear Love shows? I'm like, no. Because it's so awkward to me when I look at myself. I'm like, but there were times where I did in the beginning and was like, oh, I need to like
work on this,
work on that, be really clear coming out. Because you're right, at the very end, you could have an awesome interview, and the very last 2 minutes, we were like, that sucks.
I know. What is that all about? I will watch. Here's more confession. I will watch the episodes where I know it's been what I felt like was a complete train wreck at the end. Because, and do you do this when you're driving home from a day in studio? You play back the interview and you're like, oh shoot, if I had just said that,
this,
it would have made such a better transition.
Yeah, or I could say, oh, I forgot to say this.
Yeah, so anyways, I gotta make sure I watch when this airs just to see how bad it really was, because I feel like crap right now.
And then you're really hard on yourself, and then most of the audience is like, what? I didn't even see that. What
or
do
you
mean?
watch it and you're like, oh,
It
it
wasn't that bad. All the time. And that's the thing. It's like you're harder on yourself because you're thinking. But it was like when you have the ear piece in and they're like, 1 minute. 1 minute. Then you're like, okay. And I still have 5 questions left.
The best is, you're 3 minutes over. We're 3 minutes heavy.
Which really says, Mark, you've totally destroyed the show today because you're over.
Basically, we're rolling the closer right now. Wave goodbye.
Thank you for the interview. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye, and tomorrow's guest.
See, this is all the behind the scenes because this is real. Like we actually, I mean, for viewers and listeners, think about this. Like this is what we think about every day. Like you think, oh, Mel, that was so great. You write on social, Mark, that was so great. And then meanwhile, we're like, it wasn't great. We should have done this. I hated my hair. I didn't like this. Like all the time.
What was I thinking? Why did I choose that tense of the verb? It doesn't even make sense.
Now I'm going to watch your shows even more.
Don't watch it.
Because now I want to hear this. Like, oh, okay, get my pen out.
I'm going to get a grade. I'm going to get a grade after every episode.
B-, C+. Oh, that's awesome. No, but that's real. And I don't think a lot of people know that. Like, that's how we feel. I remember seeing an interview where Angelina Jolie was asked, have you watched any of your movies? Like, that was like Lara Croft, all of them. And she actually goes, no.
Really?
Because she's like, I don't want to see myself on screen. But I realized that was me because it's so awkward on a big screen TV. You're looking at yourself, you're like, that's too much of me. Like, I know I'm too much already in my own real life, but seeing it there, and then you're like, ew, like, why did I react that way? Why was my eye? Why did I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even that reactions, you're like, oh.
It's almost like what you don't know won't hurt you.
Yes.
Like what you don't see or hear won't hurt you.
It never happened.
Yeah, it never happened.
Never happened. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah,
That's really good. Okay. You talked about Ange before. Mm-hmm. How long have you been married to Ange now?
24 years.
No. You're babies then.
We were, mid-20s.
When I say that, okay, so 24 years marriage. Okay, let's be honest about this. Let's start with what has been the best part of being married for 24 years. What have you learned about yourself? What would you say?
The support.
Okay, so support.
The constant support that you have in your spouse. Mm-hmm. I have to say, in my particular situation, I was really blessed to have a woman that was willing to allow my dreams to be her dreams.
Wow. That's
for a period of time.
Right.
And that was a real big one because that I don't know if that was necessarily what she signed up for when we first started dating and when she agreed to marry me and all of that, which kind of segues into sort of the not so great parts or the more challenging parts of marriage. I think my life calling was a big challenge in our marriage because it required me to make some serious sacrifices, often at the expense of her and our son, Lucas. I think parenting was a bit of a challenge because here's this thing. So you get married, right, and you got this honeymoon stage that you go through. And we were married 6 years before Lucas came along. Everything's hunky-dory. It's just, you're just each other. You're getting to know each other. You're traveling, whatever. And then a baby comes, and you realize that you both have very unique, distinct ideals about how that child should be raised.
Right.
And then the real you surfaces. And I think that's where we probably ran into our, our first patch of rough waters, because she had an idea. I had an
Yeah.
idea. I was the oldest of 6 kids. I practically reared my 5 younger siblings. So I was very comfortable with babies. She was the baby of 3. So she was the one that had been coddled in her family. So she was always leaning more on her mother for that direction. But I, figured I know how to do this.
Yeah.
You don't always need to be going to your mom, but understanding too, that's immature love, first of all, because understanding a woman's need for her mother's input into how she raises her child is very, very important. It took time for me to learn that.
Right.
Right. So even though I could have been as maternal as she needed me to be to help her along, she really needed that from her mother, and I needed to let her get that from her mom.
Wow.
Right. But you have to go through it to learn it. But I think probably the biggest challenge was the number of years that I invested, and maybe even, and not just maybe, but the money that I invested, the risks that I took financially, building a career. And don't get me wrong, we experienced a lot of great, feats and great success along the way. But it got to the point where things changed, and the hard conversations needed to be had. How much longer are you going to keep pursuing this thing? Obviously, the tides have turned a bit. Trends are changing. That circuit of theaters that you were doing on a regular basis during the prime of that particular genre of music has changed. They're not buying your show anymore.
Yeah.
We're bleeding more than we're making. And she was very successful in her world. She's a design consultant. She worked with a condominium builder. She's always worked. She's always done very well. And then that created an imbalance of financial power, if you will, or contribution to the household. So there's all of these things going on. In complete honesty, then I start dealing with insecurity because I'm not contributing the way I want to. In fact, I may be responsible for the bleeding that's going on financially in the household. And then you start making sort of bad financial decisions because you're trying to redeem something that didn't turn out the way you'd hoped. And so all these pressures, and really at the end of the day, it was an awakening that I had to come to say, you know what? She's right. I need to make some serious decisions. I need to prioritize my family over my career and stop taking the risks that I have felt I deserve to take because this is my calling. I'm a musician and I've had so much success up to this point, and why shouldn't I keep trying to move the needle forward? And it came to a breaking point in our marriage where it was basically it's either going to be me, my wife had to say, or it's going to be whatever it is you want to do, because we can't keep going on this way. And man, that's a blow, right? And because you always feel like the next success is right around the corner. You're always chasing that next thing. And right around that season, I had decided, so that's going back almost 10 years ago, I decided that I needed to make some decisions. I needed to start looking at other areas, other businesses. And so I went out and got my real estate license. And that's not a magic pill either. Like, it's not like, oh, you get your real estate license and then all of a sudden, bada boom, bada bing, you're rolling in dough. No, it takes years to develop a client base and to establish rapport with the clients, the few clients that you may start out with, and then build that out. And then you wait for that return business that comes over time and all of that kind of thing. So there were some other decisions I had to make even while I was building that business. So a lot of people don't know this, Mel, but I also got my securities license about a year after that. And I went and I worked at a bank doing a 9-to-5 for a year.
No way.
To establish some stability in my family. Wow. It was what I needed to do to save my marriage. My wife needed to know that I would go and work a 9-to-5, regardless of what it was paying, just to show that I prioritized her and her son over this pie-in-the-sky dream that I had chased for 15 years at that point. So I worked in a bank for a year.
Mark.
Yeah. And it was in that season that I will call it my business sense was fine-tuned. I began to understand how real business operates, what it means, what's involved to build a business, the disciplines involved in reporting to a 9 to 5 like that, which I had not done in years, right? I'd always worked for myself. Like I'm an entrepreneur. I go out, I do it. I have my own schedule. Usually it's like mid-afternoon to late nights because you're an artist, right? That's what you do. You're always like, and the other thing that you did was go to the gym because you kind of need to be in shape. You got to take care of your physical, appearance. But this caused me to reprioritize things, and that stability at home worked wonders for our marriage. That's all she was looking for. She wanted a man that was going to, put her needs first for maybe once in our married lives.
Wow.
And so I thank God for that year at the bank. And with that, because it was in that, I daily had to pray, God, I'm laying all of this other stuff down. Put the artistry down. If I never stand on a stage again, I'm cool with it. And that's a little bit of a painful prayer to pray at first, but when you pray it regularly, it gets easier and easier and easier. And Mel, some of the doors that would open as a result of me holding it a lot more loosely, like I tell people this, I held on to that gift in music and that career and all of that goes with it so tightly because I thought I was doing God a favor. I thought I was like protecting it for him. You've given me this gift, I'm going to hold on to it. What I didn't realize is he couldn't do anything with it because I had it. I was white knuckling it. I was holding it so tight, so I had to let it go. I had to do the right thing for my family. It had nothing to do with a career. God didn't care what I did. Put your family first. Well, obviously put me first, then put your family second. And I'll take care of the rest, including the desires of your heart. You got to get it right, Masri. And this process just, it developed disciplines in me that I am thankful for. I always kind of laugh because I'm a bit of a slow learner. Like I almost like when you were started off the top and all the gushing, I'm like, well, if you only knew how long it has taken me to learn some of these lessons and to get to the place where I am today. I'm really kind of a bit of a late bloomer, if you will, and slow learner even at times. But I'm so thankful for the lessons that I learned, even if it wasn't till my early 30s that I started to learn those lessons, or mid 30s, right? Because they have just solidified some things, some pillars in my life that I needed. And I just... as painful as it's been, or as painful as it was, I'm so thankful to be on the other side. And there's so much freedom. So much freedom. And to move into an on-air hosting role for a ministry that I hold very dear to me was just like, God, I would have never seen this opportunity in a million years. And yet, all the stuff that you've done in me has been preparing me for this time. And honestly, where the real estate thing is concerned, Mel, I can honestly say in the last year, I've had the best year of my 10 years of being, 8 years of being licensed. And I can't explain why. I'm really not, I'm an okay realtor. I will say, I'm not the guy that's the full-time every day.
Right.
My clients are treated like gold. Like that's the way I really take that very seriously. But I'm nothing special. It's just, I think I finally got the point. And I've been able to prioritize life in such a way that puts things in their proper place, in their proper order.
You've said a lot. I'm taking a lot of notes because, and this was my follow-up question, which you've answered, but, we have seen and we know people, and I know people who have tried to do the artist thing and musician thing, and relationships have failed, marriages have failed. There's been a lot of difficulty and challenge. And, I'm not trying to point the finger at them, but I think what you said, you've sort of answered the question about the priority. Because I think that when you're an artist, there are times where it's like, this is it. This is the call, or even not the word call, but this is what I was made and created to do. And I've seen it where at the expense of relationships, at the expense of family and children.
Yeah.
And yet, what I'm hearing you say, Mark, is that there is a choice in that.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. there have been situations where there have been people we've known, like I've known, and where they were financially struggling, but they would not go and get a 9 to 5 banking job. They wouldn't go and work at the grocery store because it was too beneath them, because they wanted a certain level of job. But then again, it was at the detriment of family and relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
That
listening
could have
to
been,
you.
that could have been me.
No, I know, I'm listening
Yeah.
to you, and that's really important for like our listeners and viewers to hear right now, because there's a responsibility. There's a choice. Everybody has a choice, but what are you going to prioritize?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really been, what you're saying is just right on.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a tough pill to swallow. Like, trust me, it probably took me kicking and screaming, you know, right down to that first day where I walked into that bank. And like,
Wow.
I did well. Like, I mean, I flourished in that environment.
I can see that. I can
it-
totally
it-
see that.
And the manager was wanting to, like, within 6 months, she was already seeing areas where she wanted to move me up. And then because other things started to develop in my life, it was almost like God sent me back to school for a year. He was like,
That's what can happen. Yeah.
I'm going to send you back to school. You'll actually get a paycheck while you're going there, but you've got a few things to learn.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, you're going to be home for your family every night at 5 or 5:30. So all you have to worry about is going and doing your very best at the bank, and then you come home and you be with your family. You serve your family.
Incredible.
And it changed the energy in our house. Like, it changed the dynamics between me and my wife. It changed, you know, Lucas was right at a critical stage in his life, and he needed, I'm thankful that, you know, it all happened in the time that it did, because it was very critical for Lucas to see his dad do what I did
Yeah.
at that particular stage. So, because it's important that he knows the importance of priorities,
Yeah.
you know, because he'd seen, I mean, kids are sensitive.
Oh, yeah.
And they know what's going
They're
on.
smarter than we think.
They're smart.
Yeah,
They're
they are smart. They are smart. Have so many more questions, but I know we need to land this plane.
Yes.
Let's just end with, you know, we've come out of a pandemic. We're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe this is encouragement to me, to you, to our viewer and listener, but, you know, we're exhausted. It's not been easy. How do you stay healthy and hopeful, Mark, in a time like this? And what would be some encouragement for somebody who's just like, I'm tapped out. Like, this conversation's been encouraging, but I'm still.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, the first thing I'd say is look up. And I don't say that lightly. I don't like, oh, that's just a pat answer. I really do say look up to God, you know. Look at that relationship and ask yourself, how much time am I investing in my relationship with God? Because that has been key to me. There have been seasons in my life where that was not the case. That was the last thing on my priority list. As much as I loved God, I wasn't pouring into that relationship. So that's what I would say right off the bat.
Okay.
But that is not to say that you will still not have struggles and trials, and you'll
Right.
be frustrated and you feel you're lacking motivation and you just don't have anything more to give. I get it. I've been there. I would say another thing to do is find something, whether it's a cause, an initiative, a purpose that is consistent with your core values, and pour yourself into that.
That's good.
I can't tell you how many times when I have decided to do something that is outward looking, give of myself, even if it costs me something, how much I feel filled at the end of that. How enriched my life is. And the needs of me and my family are met as a result of that willingness to go out and to pour into the lives or another purpose or another cause
Right.
that isn't self-serving.
Yeah.
Like, we live in such a self-serving society,
Yeah.
Mel. You know, like, we're always, well, what can we do to build me up, to climb the corporate ladder, to own the bigger house, to have, a bigger portfolio, investment portfolio, whatever the case may be. What are we doing to pour into the lives of somebody else?
Right. I love that. Look up and find really a purpose, something to pour yourself, because it's all about me. And then when I start looking at myself and all the issues, it's big. But when you
Yeah.
start looking outward and you see the other issues of people, everything changes. Perspective changes immediately.
100%.
Mark Masri, thank you so much. This was rich, and I loved it. And I want to close with a prayer. So for all of the colleagues, I've actually like said, okay, God, help me find a prayer that works, that's for them. And it's been interesting. I've found prayers all in different places. But this one it's a prayer for strength and patience. It's a prayer that would be like you saying it to God. But I really felt that this is one that I wanted to say to you, to God. I really thank you for your honesty and your transparency as you shared. I think, just talking about marriage and these choices is really important. And I think there are many people who needed to hear that today.
Thanks,
and to be reminded about our choice and family. So I want to pray this over you, and then we'll just finish up, and you'll have to come back. There's so much
Part
more
2.
to say. Yeah. So here is a prayer for you to God, a prayer for strength and patience. So God, I need to give out so much more than I can give alone. I need the strength that comes from you, Almighty Graceful One. I need the strength of wisdom so that just like a tree, I can grow roots deep in you that others do not see. I need the strength of gentle peace so that just like the sea, I can rise and fall each day and lead others gently onwards. I need the strength of steady love so that just like wind, I can blow or hold my breath with patience deep and kind. I need to give out much more than I can give alone. I need the strength that comes from you, Almighty Graceful One. Amen.
Amen.
So I pray that over you. That comes from actually the holylandprayer.com website. It's the random things that I just pulled, but I pray that strength of wisdom, strength of gentle peace, strength of steady love for you, Mark.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best, praying for new seasons and new opportunities and great hosting and landing the plane and all the things. We'll have to have you come back and give us updates on your life and what's happening. But thank you so much for being with me on See Hear Love. It was really a joy.
It's been my pleasure, Melinda.
Yeah,
Thank
amazing.
you.
And to you, our viewers and listeners, I really hope that you were encouraged by my conversation with Mark. And as you sit and think about your priorities, as you think about your marriage, as you think about your career and calling, as you think about transitions, hard places, as I always say, know that you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. You are not alone. He is with you every step of the way. So our hope is that you trust in strength that only comes from God. And thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you stay with us into the series of the creative name of the series, Melinda and Her Colleagues. And I hope you're enjoying this series with us. Thanks so much for joining us.